When it comes to the West Wing, I mean, I'm a broken record talking about this, but I wrote the essay on the West Wing in 2017, and at the time, I remember thinking that the show, better than anything else, articulated and channeled a certain kind of liberal view of the world that especially came out during the Obama era. I think I've actually kind of radicalized on that view a little bit. I actually think the West Wing played an active role in shaping that view, and you really see it in the memoirs of people that worked in the Obama White House, where they're all citing this show. I mean, there was a particular type of Ivy League 20-year-old or something who in 2007 went to go work for this junior senator from Illinois who was running this really exciting campaign, and their only political education was the West Wing. So, when they get to the White House, they don't think, oh, I'm in the White House, we're running the country now. They think, oh, wow, I'm on the set of my favorite show, and there's so much in the West Wing that you still see manifest in how, liberals view the world. This idea that you can fix everything with a speech, that bipartisanship is not a means to an end, that it's an end in itself. And also just the conservatism of that show is really striking. The fact that this is kind of the liberal fantasy of politics, in the Clinton, Bush, and Obama eras, and they don't really pass anything. I mean, I think their most significant legislative achievement is cutting Social Security in an episode where you're supposed to celebrate that. They put a far-right justice on the Supreme Court because in exchange they get a liberal, and the staff of the West Wing find these two lawyers, kind of their banter, they find it charming, and they think, wouldn't that be great? There's a subtext of the West Wing that so much of what matters in politics to liberals is just the way they look and the way they make us feel. And so so it's not about ideology really, or that's secondary. It's not about, what a Democratic administration actually achieves or passes in terms of legislation. It's all about these moments that make us feel good. The West Wing has multiple. It's Obama. It's Obama. It's late night TV, right? It's again, back to Jon Stewart. It's, late night TV and comedians epically owning Fox News, epically owning the right. And, obviously, if you could just defeat the right by owning them with facts and logic, Donald Trump never would have been elected. In the world of the West Wing, Bartlett wins a debate against a Republican governor who's challenging him for the presidency by just shutting him down kind of pedantically in the opening statement. And politics doesn't work that way, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, we could go. I could talk about that for hours, but
this is a real rabbit hole. Yeah.
Yeah, and you talk about the Supreme Court justice thing. I mean, that's kind of where we are in terms of Democratic opposition. I mean, they've caught up recently, but to the Supreme Court picks, which brings me to one of your other essays, Why Liberals Pretend They Have No Power. We'll get people who write into the show or who call in and say, why do you guys, Sam and I, why do we cover Democrats as incompetent or bad at their jobs as opposed to losing on purpose? I think losing on purpose is too conspiratorial and not accurate, but they are incredibly incompetent, but they're also incentivized, they're feckless by design, and their incentives are all wrong. Curious about your take or what you'd say if you were, here and during the call portion of the show and we got one of those calls.
Yeah, I mean, so I would agree. I mean, it depends on what somebody means by they're losing on purpose. I mean, I think there is a sense in which the incentive structures for a lot of kind of senior people, the consultant class that kind of underwrites much of what happens in the Democratic leadership. A lot of the Democratic leaders themselves, right? A lot of these people are exorbitantly rich. Even if you lose your seat or whatever in a midterm, there's going to be some, white collar legal firm, some kind of consultancy you can go to, where, you might have a little bit of lost honor because you lost an election to, Yosemite Sam or something, but right. you're not going to suffer, the stakes are kind of low for you. So in that sense, I kind of buy the idea that they're, in that sense, maybe Democrats are quote unquote losing on purpose, or at least they're ambivalent about the possibility of losing in some cases. I mean, that essay, kind of dealt with this strange phenomenon of liberals actually in positions of power, kind of acting as if they have no power, which is something you really saw in the Trump era. So I think the occasion for that essay was Nancy Pelosi calling Donald Trump a third world dictator or something. This was just ahead of the 2020 election, I think. And then, she was asked, well, are you going to shut down the government to stop, some appointment he's going to make or something? And she said, oh no, of course we can't do that. Can't do anything. And that's a theme, a kind of dissonance, if you want, that runs right through the Trump era, where Democrats were, on the one hand, the kind of house rhetoric of liberalism for 4 years, and even before that, during Trump's candidacy, was this is a state of emergency. We're gonna have the Fourth Reich in America. This is unlike anything we've ever seen. And then what did Democrats do? Well, they approved a lot of his appointments. They kept the regular functioning of government as it was. You had absurd moments like when I think Trump's first State of the Union, Van Jones went on TV after and was celebrating, some part of Trump's speech where he addressed a widow in a recent, someone who'd been killed in a recent, raid or something. I mean, just there was just a clear commitment to kind of status quoism. And to all of the kind of normal etiquette of American politics, even as, there was all this stuff about how, there was a state of exception. You see the same thing on all kinds of issues, on climate change, where you have, you can have like the governor of California tweet, climate change is real. Someone needs to do something about it. And it's like, yeah, if only there were some executive in charge of the world's fifth largest economy, But
process. I mean, we got to do commit to process or commit to procedure. It's so silly.
Right. And that's related to this, because there is, and again, I hate to keep bringing up the West Wing, but, there is almost a kind of fantasy of impotence here that you see channeled in that show where, and of course there are material reasons for this and ideological reasons as well. But the House style of liberalism today really is, you make these sweeping statements about how bad everything is, how precarious everything is, how dangerous everything is. And then you kind of, at the same time, throw up your hands and you say, well, we can't do anything about it. I mean, we only have 50 seats in the Senate, or we don't have the courts, or Fox News was mean to us. So there's a belief that, a belief and almost a celebration, in fact, I think, of these impediments to doing anything, in addition
as
to
morally
actually
righteous in and of themselves. The impediments are democracy, right? Which is a complete, yeah, it's very self-serving.
That's right. And I'll just bring up, I don't want to, make my answer too long-winded here, but I mean, I'll just bring up one thing that I think is very telling, that is quite exemplary of this, which was something Biden actually said in 2019 when he was running for president, where he said something to the effect of, it's good when you don't have unified party control of the U.S. government. So this is something Biden's saying while he's running for president, to be a Democratic president. He's saying it's good when no party has too much power. So in, the kind of centrist worldview of someone like Biden, the fantasy is that you have to deal with Mitch McConnell. And I think that's really telling. And it's related, it's importantly also not something you see on the right? You'd never hear Mitch McConnell or Donald Trump say that.
They'll be the opposition party to oppose the Democrats. And Sam said this, I think, yesterday. Democrats have completely disengaged from being an opposition party. And that's
absolutely.
Yeah.